Hey guys, tonight we are stepping into the sandals of a tired but stubborn traveler. Imagine yourself on a dusty road at dawn. The horizon painted in pale pinks and oranges, and the air still cool enough that your robes cling just slightly to your skin. The day promises to get hotter. The road promises to get longer, and you probably will not survive this. At least, not without a nap. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you are at it, drop a quick comment with your location and the time it is where you are right now. I like seeing who is awake with me on these strange, sleepy journeys. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let us ease into tonight's journey together. The morning stretches in front of you like a thin line of hope. Birds chatter in the hedges, sparrows darting across the path as if mocking your slow pace. A few other travelers shuffle beside you, a merchant with a pack mule that looks more tired than its owner, a barefoot boy carrying a bundle of reeds, and two women with baskets balanced on their heads. The road feels alive with quiet purpose, each set of feet pressing its own story into the dust. The monk in you knows that walking is not simply about reaching a destination. Every step is meant to burn away a little of the self. Yet your stomach, very much tied to earthly cravings, reminds you that the last bit of millet porridge was more water than grain. The thought of food has you watching the merchant's pack too closely, wondering if he has dried figs tucked inside. The road itself is not glamorous. Flat stones are wedged unevenly, with weeds pushing up in the cracks. In some stretches, the path is pure dirt, rutted from wagon wheels and hardened by years of hooves. You keep your pace steady, trying not to let your sandals catch on loose pebbles. The dust clings to your toes. Still, there is something hypnotic about the rhythm. Left, right, breathe, repeat. As the sun rises higher, the world wakes around you. Farmers appear in the fields, swinging hoes over their shoulders. A woman drives a pair of oxen, the wooden yoke creaking as they pull a plow. Children shout and chase each other near a stream. The ordinary routines of life blend with your own extraordinary journey, and you feel the odd mixture of being just another person, yet also a stranger, marked by your robe and shaved head. People glance at you with a mix of respect and mild suspicion. Pilgrims are holy, yes, but they are also unpredictable. One mainstream historical fact that often gets overlooked: roads like the one beneath your feet were not just for spiritual seekers, they were the veins of trade, carrying salt, grain, cloth, and rumors from one town to the next. A Roman road, for example, could last centuries if maintained. Historians still argue whether the sturdiness of those roads was due to brilliant engineering or simply the relentless labor of underpaid workers. You, meanwhile, simply feel every uneven stone through thin sandals. The smell of morning dew fades quickly, replaced by the dry tang of dust. Your throat grows scratchy. You pass a roadside shrine, little more than a weathered stone slab carved with a faint image of a guardian spirit. Someone has left an orange peel there, perhaps as an offering. You bow your head briefly, mutter a prayer you half believe in, and continue. Traveling monks often amused themselves with little mind games. One trick is to count to 100 with each breath. Another is to silently recite a phrase until the words lose all meaning and dissolve into pure rhythm. You try both, though the counting keeps getting interrupted by a nagging pebble inside your sandal. As you stop to shake it out, the merchant with the mule catches up and mutters something about poor road maintenance. You nod politely, though in your head you picture a secret council of road builders meeting every full moon to plot exactly how to place the worst rocks in the most inconvenient spots. It is easier to laugh at such thoughts than to think about how much further you must walk. A quirky tidbit floats into your mind. Ancient travelers sometimes rubbed their feet with goose fat to prevent blisters. It sounds slippery, but apparently it worked well enough. You consider whether any goose might cross your path today. The odds are not high. The morning stretches on, and your robe sticks more firmly to your back. You catch sight of distant hills, soft blue in the haze. They seem impossibly far, yet they also call you forward. You imagine the hills holding monasteries, bells ringing gently in the wind, and cool springs hidden in their folds. Hope can take the shape of a hill. As noon approaches, the crowd of fellow walkers thins. Merchants peel off toward villages, children disappear into side paths, and you find yourself more alone. The road sings with cicadas. Each buzzing wave rises and falls until it blurs into the background like the steady hum of that fan you hopefully turned on. Your mind wanders, as it always does on the road. You think about the absurdity of chasing enlightenment on 2 sore feet. Maybe wisdom is not at the end of the path, but hidden in the act of walking itself. Historians still argue whether pilgrimage was more about piety or politics, whether kings encouraged it for control, or whether it was a genuine expression of faith. You are less concerned with the debate than with your next sip of water. A shallow stream crosses the path, trickling lazily over rounded stones. You bend down, scoop some into your cupped hands, and drink. The water is lukewarm but refreshing. You watch a dragonfly hover, its wings catching sunlight like shards of glass. Moments like these are small gifts, reminders that not every step must be heavy. Still, the day wears on. Hunger gnaws again. The monk's vow of simplicity feels noble in theory, but in practice, it just means your stomach rumbles louder than temple drums. You distract yourself by studying the footprints left ahead of you, the thin marks of cartwheels, the sharp prints of horseshoes, and the faint traces of bare human feet. Each one tells a story you will never fully know. By late afternoon, the sun begins to dip, casting longer shadows. The air cools slightly, though the road still radiates stored heat. Your robe smells of sweat and dust, and your shoulders ache from the small bundle you carry. Yet, as you crest a gentle rise, you catch sight of tiled roofs clustered together. Smoke curls from chimneys, promising food and company. Relief spreads through your tired body like water soaking dry soil. The first monastery of your journey waits somewhere beyond those roofs, tucked quietly behind stone walls and prayer flags. You will find it soon enough. For now, you simply keep walking, your sandals slapping the dusty road in steady rhythm, your thoughts drifting between hunger and hope, silence and prayer. The day's first chapter closes with your feet sore, your spirit wavering, and the sky bleeding into twilight. Tomorrow will bring its own tests. Tonight, you simply make it to shelter. The roofs of the village slip behind you as the road bends and narrows, guiding you toward the walls of a modest monastery. The air shifts here, softer somehow, carrying the faint smell of smoke and herbs. A bell tolls, not grand or thunderous, but a humble tone that wavers in the wind like the call of a sleepy bird. Your tired feet dragged with both dread and relief. Relief, because here lies shelter. Dread, because monasteries have their own demands. And you know you will be expected to match their pace of prayer and labor. The stone wall ahead is not imposing. It looks patched together over centuries, with moss pushing up through the cracks and ivy curling over the corners. You knock at the wooden gate, your knuckles raising little bursts of dust from the surface. After a pause, the gate creaks open and a young novice peers out. His head is shaved, his robe plain, his eyes half curious and half suspicious. He does not ask who you are, he simply gestures for you to enter. Inside, the courtyard feels like a different world. A well stands in the middle, its rope frayed, its bucket leaning to one side. Small garden plots surround it, neat squares of cabbage and leeks, with rows of beans climbing up thin poles. Monks move quietly between them, some weeding, some carrying baskets, some bent over in silent work that seems more prayer than labor. You stand there awkwardly, your dusty sandals leaving marks on the swept stone. A senior monk approaches, his robe darker with age and wear, his hands folded into the sleeves. He nods once, then leads you toward the refectory without a word. Hospitality is a commandment here, not a courtesy. You are seated at a wooden bench, and before long a bowl of barley stew is set before you. The smell alone nearly makes you dizzy with hunger. You bow slightly, whisper thanks, then scoop it up with trembling hands. The taste is plain, just barley and a few wilted greens. Yet it feels like a feast after the long walk. One mainstream historical fact worth noting is that monasteries across medieval Europe and Asia were often the only dependable refuges for travelers. They offered not just food and rest, but sometimes medical care, shelter for animals, and even basic schooling. Historians still argue whether monasteries were more concerned with genuine charity or with strengthening their influence through dependency. Whatever the case, for you at this moment, the charity feels very real in the form of warm stew. After the meal, you are guided to a small corner of the dormitory. Rows of straw pallets line the floor, each with a folded blanket on top. The air smells of hay and faint smoke, and the sound of gentle snoring lingers even in daylight hours. You lay down, the straw prickling through the thin fabric, but exhaustion quickly dulls the discomfort. When you wake, the light outside has dimmed. A gong echoes faintly, signaling the evening prayers. You shuffle with the others into the chapel, where rows of low lamps cast flickering light across stone walls. The monks take their places in silence, their voices rising together in a low chant. The sound vibrates in your chest, pulling you into a rhythm that is both soothing and unsettling. It is not entertainment, it is discipline in sonic form. You try to follow, your voice fumbling through unfamiliar verses. The chant stretches long, wrapping around time itself. Minutes become indistinguishable. You are no longer sure whether you are praying or merely existing inside a cocoon of sound. At last it ends, and silence crashes down with almost physical weight. A quirky tidbit slips into your mind. In some monasteries, chanting was not simply for worship, but also a practical way to keep track of time before mechanical clocks were common. The length of a hymn or the repetition of a psalm could measure the hours. Imagine living your life by song lengths instead of clock hands. Maybe Spotify would not have caught on in that kind of world. After prayers, you are given the task of helping in the kitchen. The novices bustle about, scrubbing pots with sand, stacking wooden bowls, and stoking the hearth. You scrub alongside them, your muscles aching yet strangely grateful for the movement. The act of cleaning feels grounding. A novice tells you, in a conspiratorial whisper, that the elder monk once banned onions from the stew because they were thought to inflame sinful passions. You glance at the pot tonight and see only leeks floating there, and you wonder if leeks are considered holier. When the chores end, the night deepens. The dormitory fills again with the sound of breathing, snoring, and the occasional rustle of straw. You lie awake longer than you expect, staring at the wooden rafters. The quiet hum of insects outside mixes with the memory of chants still vibrating in your ears. You think about how fragile the walls are, how thin the blankets, and how monks live with such little concern for comfort. Historians still argue whether this denial of luxury was sincere pursuit of spiritual purity or a subtle way of consolidating control over minds by breaking down worldly desires. From your palate, the argument feels abstract. You just know that your back hurts. Sleep comes late. Dreams flicker, full of half-remembered chants and endless bowls of barley. You wake in the grey before dawn to another gong. No one speaks. The monks shuffle back to the chapel, voices rising again in that same endless hum. You follow, bleary-eyed and sore, yet caught in the tide of their discipline. By mid-morning, you are given bread and a small flask of thin ale, provisions for the road ahead. The senior monk nods at you, a farewell that contains no blessing, no promise, only recognition that your journey continues. You bow, then step back through the gate into the bright light of day. The road waits, stretching once more into dust and distance. The silence of the monastery lingers in your ears, a contrast to the noise that you know lies ahead on the path. Your stomach is steadier, your body rested, your sandals ready for more punishment. You look back only once, watching the walls shrink into the horizon, then turn forward again. The pilgrim road continues, and so do you. The road opens wider as the morning burns away its mist. Ahead, the noise reaches you before the sight does. Clanging metal, sharp laughter, the bray of donkeys, and the hum of 100 voices mixing like a hive. The path bends around a cluster of mud brick walls, and then, suddenly, you are there, standing at the edge of a market town. Stalls are lined along the main street, their awnings patched with cloth in faded reds and browns. Merchants stand behind tables stacked with everything from coarse salt to bright copper pots. A butcher sharpens his knife in long, showy strokes, while a cloth seller flaps his hands to shoo away the dust that settles on his wares. Children dart between the crowd, their bare feet slapping the stone, giggling as they weave in and out like restless birds. The smell hits hardest. Roasting meat mixes with the sharp tang of vinegar, the sweetness of figs, and the less pleasant reek of fish that has been lying out too long. Your empty stomach responds with a growl that you hope no one notices. The truth of the pilgrim life is that vows and prayers may guide you, but hunger is always the loudest companion. You move slowly, trying not to look like a thief, though your eyes linger too long on trays of honey cakes. A baker notices and gives you a sly grin, offering one with a flourish as though generosity flows from him like wine. You reach for it, bow in thanks, and then realize the trick. The second your hand touches the cake, his other hand opens flat and waits. His smile does not soften. Pilgrimage is holy, yes, but commerce is holier still in a market town. With no coin to spare, you mutter apology and walk on. Behind you, his laughter follows like a stone in your shoe. One mainstream historical fact is that medieval market towns like this were the true engines of cultural exchange. Roads carried not only goods, but also stories, songs, and even diseases. Historians still argue whether the Black Death spread faster through ships or through inland markets like these. Either way, the constant mingling of strangers created both wealth and risk. You, wandering in this crowd, feel both possibilities pressing close. At a spice stall, colors explode. Piles of crushed saffron glow golden, mounds of ground pepper glisten black, and cinnamon sticks curl like small pieces of driftwood. You breathe deep, your nose tingling. The merchant speaks in a rush of half-understood phrases, eager to describe how each spice cures something. Stomach aches, headaches, heartaches. You nod, as if convinced, though you suspect he would claim pepper alone could heal a broken leg if it meant another coin. A quirky tidbit slips into your memory. In some towns, spice sellers mixed ground brick dust with expensive powders to cheat customers. People often suspected, but the smell of cinnamon covered most sins. You glance at the red mound before you and wonder if you are looking at saffron or just ground roof tile. As you move deeper into the crowd, you notice the way people look at your robe. Some bow their heads slightly, respectful of your path. Others narrow their eyes, wary of another beggar wandering through. A few approach directly, pressing coins into your hand or asking for blessings in return. One woman holds up a cloth doll, whispering for you to protect her child. You mutter a prayer, though in your heart you are not sure who hears it. There is a kind of theatre in the market. Performers stand on crates, juggling knives or shouting verses of epic poems. Musicians pluck at lutes, their melodies carrying through the din. A thin man with a snake draped around his neck waves a basket at the crowd. Children squeal as he pretends to lose control of it, then laugh when the snake simply coils back into his sleeve. You cannot help but smile. Yet the market also has shadows. Two men argue bitterly over a bolt of cloth, their voices rising until one grabs the other by the collar. A group of boys follow a drunk traveler, mimicking his staggering steps until he curses at them. A pickpocket brushes too close, and you clutch your bundle tighter. The thought of losing your meager provisions souring the air. The press of people grows heavy, and you seek escape at the edge of the square. There, a small fountain trickles. A few pilgrims sit with their feet in the basin, cooling themselves. You join them, letting the water wash dust from your ankles. For a moment, silence returns. You watch sunlight flicker on the surface, and the whole world shrinks to ripples of light and the sound of water. Still, the town pulls you back. Before you leave, you notice a scribe hunched under a canopy. Sheets of parchment are spread before him, his ink pot balanced carefully on a stone. He copies a letter for a merchant, his hand moving quick and sure. You remember that literacy is still rare, and men like him serve as both record keepers and secret keepers. Historians still argue whether the spread of literacy in towns was more revolutionary than the arrival of printing centuries later. Watching the scribe, you wonder how many secrets he has carried in his ink. The sun drifts lower. Merchants begin to shout louder, pushing to sell what remains before night makes it spoil. You feel the road calling again, but you linger just long enough to buy a small roll of bread with the single coin you have hidden in your robe. You chew it slowly, stretching each bite as though it could last forever. When you finally step back onto the road, the sound of the town follows for a while, fading with each step until only the cicadas sing again. Your pouch is lighter, your belly fuller, and your mind heavier with the mix of charity and trickery you just passed through. Pilgrimage is not only about holy places, it is also about surviving the endless markets that feed and test you. Ahead, the dust waits once more. The town shrinks behind you, its smells and voices fading into memory. The road stretches forward, quieter now, but alive with the promise of more trials. You shift your bundle on your shoulder and keep walking. The market noise fades, and the road settles into a hush again. The silence feels strange after so much shouting and bargaining. Your ears ring faintly, as though they still hold the echo of traders calling their prices. But the land around you has changed. Trees lean over the path, their branches tangled, their leaves whispering against one another. The light seems dimmer here, though the sun has not yet sunk. You are not alone, and that is not always comforting. A group of travelers walks behind you, their voices low and clipped. They look like men who carry blades beneath their cloaks. One coughs sharply, and the others fall quiet. Your pace quickens. The road is narrow, the trees too close, and the shadows feel longer than they should. Traveling in the open countryside was always risky. One mainstream historical fact is that banditry flourished anywhere trade routes passed. Roads brought wealth in motion, and wealth in motion tempted desperate hands. Whole bands of thieves lived by timing their ambushes at bends in the path or near bridges where escape was limited. Historians still argue whether governments of the time genuinely tried to root them out or simply made deals with them when convenient. Walking here with strangers too close behind, you suspect the latter. To distract yourself, you fix your eyes on the path. Your sandals kick up thin clouds of dust. Each step sounds louder than it should. Your throat feels dry, and you wish for the sound of the monastery bell or even the market noise again. The silence here is too sharp. Ahead, the trees thin, and you see dark clouds rising on the horizon. Storm clouds, swollen and heavy, dragging shadows across the hills. The road stretches straight toward them. A gust of wind scatters dust into your eyes, and you blink hard, your vision watering. Nature, it seems, is just as eager to test you as thieves. You press forward, pulling your robe tighter. The first drops hit, large and cold, splashing against your scalp and running down your neck. Within moments, the road becomes mud. The earth sucks at your sandals, trying to trap each step. The wind tears at the branches, and the whole forest seems to sway. A flash of light splits the sky, and thunder follows with a crack that makes your chest rattle. A quirky tidbit surfaces in your thoughts. Some pilgrims carried little bells or whistles they would blow during storms, not to ward off thieves, but to ward off spirits. The belief was that storms hid angry ghosts or demons that clung to the rain. Whether true or not, the sound of bells in a storm must have been eerie, like laughter mixing with thunder. You picture yourself carrying one now, though your hands are too full with mud and your robe plastered to your body. The storm grows worse. Rain lashes sideways, forcing you to bend into it. Your bundle grows heavy with water. A fallen branch blocks part of the path, and you stumble over it, nearly losing your footing. Behind you, the men you noticed earlier have vanished into the downpour. You cannot decide if that is a relief or a new worry. When at last the rain eases, the road is no longer the same. Water runs in rivulets, carving new grooves through the dust. The trees drip heavily, their leaves shining wet. The smell of earth rises thick, mixed with the sharp scent of wet bark. Your robe clings and chills you, and your sandals squelch with each step. But you are moving again, which is better than standing still. Not all dangers come with knives or storms. The countryside holds its own quieter threats. A dog barks somewhere unseen, deep and angry. You grip your bundle tighter, knowing that a stray pack could appear at any time. Wolves once haunted roads like this too, though now most roam deeper in the hills. Historians still argue whether wolves truly attacked travelers as often as legends claim, or whether those stories were exaggerated to frighten children indoors at night. Either way, you listen closely, ears straining for any sound beyond the dripping trees. The path bends, and suddenly the trees break open. A wide plain stretches before you, wet and shining under the retreating clouds. The sky glows faint gold as the sun pushes back against the storm. You take a breath of relief, grateful for the space, grateful that the shadows have retreated for now. But the plain has its own kind of danger. It is too open, there is nowhere to hide, nowhere to rest, nowhere to escape a watchful eye. You feel exposed, as though unseen figures sit on the hills, watching your every step. The wind rushes across, carrying the smell of wet grass and mud. Your sandals leave dark prints, easy to follow if anyone cared to. Your thoughts drift to the monastery behind you, its stone walls now far away. You imagine how safe those walls feel in contrast to this endless openness. Pilgrimage is not about safety, though. It is about testing yourself against whatever the road offers, whether that is barley stew or bandits in the shadows. As evening approaches, the storm has moved far enough that only faint rumbles echo. The sky shifts into soft purple, and the first stars peek through the thinning clouds. Your robe is still damp, your body still sore, but the plain stretches wide and empty. Each step now is lighter than it was beneath the dripping forest. You are tired, but you are not trapped. You glance back once, half expecting to see those shadowy men following again. The road behind is empty. Ahead, the path rises toward a stone bridge, its arch waiting against the darkening sky. The bridge will carry you into another chapter of this journey, but for now you simply keep walking. The sound of your sandals squelching against wet earth, your breath steady, your mind fixed on moving forward. The dangers have not gone. They only shift shape, waiting in the road ahead. The road climbs toward a ridge where stone replaces soil. Your sandals scrape against the rough surface, each step sending a hollow sound upward into the quiet evening. Ahead, the arch of a bridge rises, its shape cutting clean against the fading light. It looks older than the village, older than the monastery, perhaps older than the stories you carry in your head. The stones are uneven, but they hold together as if time itself dares not pull them apart. The river below rushes with the remnants of the storm. Water churns, white foam splashing against dark rocks. It sounds like 100 voices speaking at once, too fast to understand. You pause at the edge of the bridge, resting your bundle on your hip, watching the spray leap high as if trying to reach you. A cool mist touches your face, and for the first time in hours you feel clean. Bridges have always been more than crossings. One mainstream historical fact is that in both medieval Europe and parts of Asia, guilds of bridge builders were considered sacred orders. They raised money from pilgrims and nobles alike, sometimes leaving carved prayers in the arches to ensure divine blessing. Historians still argue whether these bridges were truly built for travelers or whether they were more for trade caravans that carried wealth across kingdoms. For you, it does not matter. Without the bridge, you would be stranded at the edge of a raging river. You step carefully onto the stones. They are slick, worn smooth by countless feet before yours. Some stones tilt slightly under your weight, and you imagine how many sandals, hooves, and cartwheels have pressed them. Each step feels like joining a hidden choir of travelers across centuries. Halfway across, you stop again. Carved into the railing are words you cannot fully read, faded by time. Some are prayers, scratched in quickly with knives or chisels. Some are crude drawings, faces and symbols that mean more to the carvers than to you. You run your fingers along them, feeling the grooves. Pilgrims once paused here, just as you do now, marking their presence in stone so they would not vanish completely into dust. A quirky tidbit comes to mind. In certain places, travelers would stuff coins or small trinkets into cracks between bridge stones as offerings to river spirits. The idea was that water demanded payment for safe passage. You glance down into the cracks at your feet, and sure enough, you see the faint glimmer of a coin wedged deep inside. You wonder how long it has been there, and whether the river truly remembers the hand that placed it. The wind picks up on the bridge. It pushes against your robe, tugging you toward the railing. For a brief moment, you feel the thrill of danger, the sense that one slip could send you tumbling into the roaring water. You grip the stone tighter, heart beating faster. Then you breathe, steadying yourself. The bridge may sway in your mind, but the stones remain unshaken. You look out across the river, where fields stretch wide and dark in the falling dusk. A farmer is leading two oxen back toward a barn, their silhouettes heavy against the horizon. Smoke curls upward from a cottage, pale against the darkening sky. The world continues its quiet work, even as you hesitate in the middle of the bridge. Pilgrimage is filled with crossings like this, both real and imagined. You think of how each threshold changes you, stepping from road to market, from market to monastery, from monastery to storm, and now from one side of this river to the other. Historians still argue whether pilgrims truly believed each shrine or crossing purified them, or whether they simply used the belief as a way to push themselves forward. Standing here, your feet wet from spray, you know belief is sometimes less important than the act of moving on. At the far end of the bridge, a small shrine waits. It is little more than a flat stone with a carved figure perched on top, half eroded, its face lost to weather. A few wilted flowers lie at its base. Someone has lit a candle there, though the flame flickers dangerously in the wind. You kneel, if only for a moment, not entirely sure who or what the figure represents. Perhaps a saint, perhaps a spirit of the river, perhaps nothing at all. You bow your head anyway, whispering words that dissolve into the sound of rushing water. Night is falling now, and you must move. You pull your bundle tighter and step off the bridge, your sandals finding soil once more. Behind you, the river roars on, its voice fading slowly as you climb the slope beyond. Ahead, the road narrows again, leading toward the faint outline of a hilltop shrine that you can just make out in the last scraps of light. You glance back once, the bridge now just a shadow behind you. You carry its stones in your memory, the grooves under your fingers, the sound of water beneath your feet. The crossing is behind you, but the weight of it lingers. The road ahead rises toward the hill. The air smells of wet grass and smoke, and the first stars brighten above. You feel tired, but you also feel as though you have left something of yourself in the stone railing behind you. That is what pilgrim roads do. They take pieces of you at every step. You walk on toward the hill where legends wait. The path climbs slowly, winding upward toward the hill that loomed in the distance. The night has deepened, though the sky still carries a trace of blue. The air is cooler now, carrying the smell of wet soil and faint wood smoke from scattered cottages below. Each step up the slope feels heavier than the last. Your sandals slide against loose gravel, your bundle presses into your shoulder, and your lungs work harder with the incline. At the crest of the hill stands the shrine. It is not large or polished. The stones are worn, cracked by centuries of rain and sun. The structure leans slightly, as if bowing to the wind. Torches have long since gone out, leaving only the moon to illuminate the shapes carved into its walls. You step closer, running your hand over the rough surface. The carvings are shallow, faded figures of guardians or saints, their faces blurred into anonymity. You can barely tell where one ends and another begins. The air around the shrine feels different, charged in a way you cannot name. Perhaps it is simply the height of the hill, the wind brushing through grass, the silence that swallows even the sound of your own breath. Perhaps it is more. Pilgrims often describe shrines like this as thresholds, where earth and heaven pressed close together. You are not sure if you believe that, yet your skin tingles as if something presses against it. One mainstream historical fact is that hilltop shrines were common resting points on pilgrimage routes. They were built not only as places of worship, but also as markers, signaling distance covered and distance yet to go. Some even served as watchposts for guards who kept an eye on the valleys below. Historians still argue whether shrines were constructed at sacred sites because of long-held traditions, or whether rulers simply chose high points for their strategic view. Standing here, with the wind tugging at your robe, both reasons feel plausible. You kneel before the shrine. A few offerings lie scattered at its base. A bundle of dried herbs tied with twine. A carved wooden figure no bigger than your thumb. A cracked clay cup filled with rainwater. Someone has left incense as well, though the stick has burned down to ash. You close your eyes and let the smell linger in your memory, faint and sweet, almost gone. A quirky tidbit drifts into your thoughts. In certain regions, pilgrims believed that if you walked 3 times around a shrine without speaking, your wishes would reach the spirits faster. The problem was that you could not stop, even if you stumbled or sneezed. There are old tales of travelers fainting on the second lap and having to start again the next day. You imagine circling this shrine, your sandals scuffing the stones, your silence heavy as the wind whipped your robe. You do not attempt it tonight, though the thought makes you smile faintly in the dark. The moonlight shifts across the carvings, and for a moment you think you see movement. The face of one guardian seems clearer, the eyes sharper, the mouth almost ready to speak. You blink hard, and it is stone again. The mind plays tricks when fatigue and moonlight work together. You press your hand against the stone, grounding yourself. The rock is cold and steady, reminding you that whatever spirits linger here, they rest in silence. You sit back on your heels and let the quiet settle. Below you, the plain stretches wide. Faint lanterns glow from distant farms, little sparks against the darkness. Farther still, the line of the river glimmers silver in the moonlight, the bridge hidden but remembered. You think of the monastery where voices hummed in prayer, the market where spices filled the air, the storm that battered your body. All of it lies behind you, part of the path that has brought you here to this hilltop shrine. Pilgrimage is not about arrival, though shrines tempt you to think otherwise. Each one feels like a pause, a place to imagine you have reached something final. Yet you know the road stretches still, twisting into valleys, climbing into mountains, spilling into cities. Historians still argue whether shrines like these truly deepened faith, or whether they distracted pilgrims into believing each stop was the goal itself. Perhaps both are true. You feel both tempted to linger here and restless to move forward. The night grows colder. You pull your robe tighter and rest against the side of the shrine. The stone presses into your back, unyielding, but it also shields you from the wind. Sleep will be thin here, broken by the chill and the unease of being exposed. Still, you close your eyes, listening to the grass rustle and the faint creak of wood somewhere far below. Dreams drift in and out. You see the carved faces of the guardians, shifting and blurring, their mouths opening to speak words you cannot hear. You see pilgrims before you, kneeling where you kneel, circling the shrine in silence. You wake once to find the stars brighter, the moon higher, the world hushed as if holding its breath. Then you sleep again, your body surrendering to exhaustion. When dawn finally comes, the sky glows pale orange, and the chill fades. You rise stiffly, brush the dust from your robe, and bow once more to the shrine. Whatever power it holds, you carry a fragment of it with you now, tucked quietly into your steps. You shoulder your bundle and begin walking down the hill, back toward the winding road. Behind you, the shrine stands, as it has for centuries, silent stone, watching over the valley, gathering the prayers of countless pilgrims who pass, pause, and then move on. The path winds down from the hilltop shrine into lower ground, where the road grows busier again. You pass farmers guiding carts of hay, their oxen plodding steadily with heads low. Chickens scatter across the dust, chased by laughing children. The air carries the smell of dung, sweat, and smoke. By the time the sun begins to set, your feet ache in a way that only straw bedding can promise to cure. Ahead, a cluster of wooden buildings appears, leaning together as if they hold each other up against the night. The largest has a sign carved with a crude picture of a tankard, swaying slightly on rusty chains. Voices spill out from the open door, a jumble of laughter, curses, and song. The roadside inn is waiting, loud and alive. A place where pilgrims, traders, and wanderers collapse together under one roof. You push open the door and step into a fog of heat and smoke. The air is thick with the smell of ale, roasted meat, and damp wool. Long benches crowd the main room, filled with men and women hunched over bowls and cups. A fiddler sits in the corner, scraping out a tune that rises and falls above the noise. No one looks at you too closely, for every face here belongs to someone traveling through. Strangers are expected, even if they are not trusted. A tired innkeeper waves you toward an empty space at the bench. You sit, and before long, a wooden bowl is slammed down in front of you. Inside is a stew so greasy it leaves a shine on the surface. Chunks of turnip and barley float among pieces of meat that you cannot quite identify. Hunger swallows hesitation, and you eat until the bowl is empty, the taste heavy but comforting. A slab of bread follows, hard around the edges but soft in the middle. One mainstream historical fact is that inns like this often became unofficial networks of information. Travelers swapped news over ale, carrying tales from distant towns. Merchants relied on such chatter to know which roads were safe. And sometimes rulers even paid innkeepers to report suspicious visitors. Historians still argue whether inns were more important for trade or for surveillance. Sitting here, you can believe both at once. Every eye seems to watch, every ear seems to listen, even in laughter. The fiddler changes his tune, and a group of men begins to sing along, their voices loud and off-key. Someone slams a mug against the table, ale splashing across your sleeve. A fight almost breaks out when a merchant accuses a peddler of cheating, but it dissolves into laughter when another pours ale over both their heads. The inn thrives on such chaos, a nightly ritual of noise that both bonds and divides. You are pulled into conversation by a grey-haired man across the bench. He asks where you are headed, though his words slur with drink. When you say you walk the pilgrim road, he nods knowingly, then launches into a tale about the time he saw a saint appear in a field of wheat. He swears the wheat grew twice as tall overnight. Others at the bench rolled their eyes, yet no one interrupts. The inn is a place where exaggeration is as common as bread. A quirky tidbit floats into memory. Some roadside inns were infamous for watering down ale with river water. Travelers often joked that you could tell how far you had traveled by the taste of the river in your drink. You glance at your own mug, the ale cloudy, and wonder whether you are drinking more stream than barley. The noise grows thicker as night deepens. Dice clatter in a corner, and a cheer rises when someone throws a lucky number. Two men arm wrestle, their elbows grinding into the wood. A dog barks near the hearth, snapping at scraps thrown its way. The innkeeper's wife moves quickly between tables, carrying trays with the skill of someone who has done this 1,000 nights. When at last you are shown to the sleeping room, the air shifts from noisy to suffocating. The space above the tavern is lined with pallets stuffed with straw, packed so close that you can smell the sweat of the person beside you. Bodies shift and settle, and soon the room fills with snores, coughs, and the creak of wood under restless turning. You find a space against the wall, spreading your robe as a thin barrier against the scratch of straw. Sleep does not come easily. The walls are thin, and the sound of dice and shouting below seeps upward. Someone near you mutters in their sleep. Another shifts violently, jabbing your ribs with an elbow. The dog barks again, and you hear a door slam. The inn offers rest, but not peace. Historians still argue whether such inns were truly a blessing or a curse. They provided shelter and food, yes, but also carried the risk of theft, disease, and endless noise. Pilgrims often wrote of leaving with lighter purses and heavier doubts about humanity. Yet here you are, stretched on straw, grateful for even this imperfect comfort. Eventually, exhaustion wins. The voices below blur into a dull hum, and the snoring above folds into your dreams. You imagine the fiddler's tune carrying you along the road, guiding your weary steps into morning. When dawn arrives, the room stirs with groans and coughs. Travelers stumble back to the benches below, searching for leftover bread. You gather your bundle, your head heavy but your body somewhat rested. The innkeeper gives you a piece of hard cheese wrapped in cloth, a small provision for the road. You nod in thanks and step outside, blinking against the pale new light. The air is fresh compared to the smoke inside. Birds call from the hedges, and the road stretches once more into distance. The inn fades behind you, leaving only the memory of noise, the scratch of straw, and the taste of ale that may have been more river than barley. Your sandals slap the dust, your shoulders ache, but the road calls you onward. Ahead lies more company, more silence, more danger, and more wonder. The pilgrim road does not pause, even if you wish it would. The morning air is sharper after the smoky haze of the inn. Your sandals find rhythm again on the road, the sound steady and familiar. Fields stretch wide on either side, broken by the occasional grove of trees or crooked fence. For a time you walk alone, the silence broken only by birdsong and the creak of your bundle against your shoulder. Yet the road is never empty for long. Ahead, a small group approaches, their robes and cloaks a patchwork of colors unfamiliar to your eye. Their language drifts toward you in bursts, rolling syllables that sound musical but strange. Foreign pilgrims, drawn from distant lands by the same call that moves your own feet. You slow as they near, uncertain whether to step aside or fall in pace with them. They greet you with nods, gestures rather than words. Smiles bridge where language cannot. One man carries a carved staff tipped with a strip of cloth painted in bright patterns. A woman has small charms tied to her belt, each clinking softly as she walks. Another balances a pack so large it looks ready to crush him, yet his stride is steady. You join them, and the road feels lighter with company. One mainstream historical fact is that pilgrimage routes were among the earliest international highways. People from different kingdoms cultures, and tongues walked the same paths, creating a kind of shared world long before borders softened under trade or treaties. Historians still argue whether this mixing of cultures was more peaceful exchange or silent tension. On this road, you see both possibilities in every glance and gesture. You attempt a few words, but your tongue stumbles. They laugh kindly, not mocking but amused, and try a few words in your language in return. Communication becomes a game of pointing, miming, and exaggerated facial expressions. They share dried fruit with you, figs perhaps, though the taste is sharper than any you know. In return, you offer the small piece of cheese from the innkeeper, and they accept with smiles. As the hours pass, you learn to read their body language. The man with the staff points out distant hills, his tone reverent, as though some sacred site waits there. The woman with the charms hums a melody as she walks, her voice low and steady, like a chant disguised as a lullaby. The man with the heavy pack laughs often, even at nothing, the sound carrying across the fields like a bell. A quirky tidbit comes to mind. In some places, pilgrims wore badges or pins to show where they had traveled. These tokens became early souvenirs, traded or displayed like proof of faith. Some even faked them, selling badges of holy sites to travelers who had never left their villages. You glance at the charms tied to the woman's belt and wonder if they are proof of journeys past, or simply tokens bought along the way. The day grows warmer, and with it the pace slows. You share water from a stream, crouched together at the bank. The group's language fills the air, weaving round your silence. Occasionally they gesture for you to follow a story, pointing at their feet, their hearts, the sky. You nod, half understanding, half imagining. Meaning travels even when words fail. At one point, a farmer approaches from his field, drawn by the sight of so many robes. He speaks quickly, gesturing at his crops, perhaps asking for blessing. The foreign pilgrims step forward without hesitation, raising their hands, chanting softly in their own tongue. The farmer bows, satisfied, and presses a small loaf of bread into their hands before returning to his work. You watch, struck by how faith can be recognized even when the words are different. The road winds into gentle hills, and the sun dips lower. Shadows stretch long, and the group begins to sing together, voices weaving in harmonies that seem older than the stones beneath your feet. You walk quietly, letting their song carry you. It is not your song, yet it settles into your bones as if it has always been there. Historians still argue whether these meetings of cultures truly changed the world, or whether each traveler simply carried their own faith home unchanged. Did new ideas spread, or did old traditions harden against strangers? Listening to the song, you cannot help but believe that something is exchanged, even if it is only the comfort of shared footsteps. As night falls, the group makes camp by the road. They light a small fire, cooking grain in a pot blackened by years of use. The smell is warm, filling the cool air. They gesture for you to sit, and you do, the fire painting all your faces with gold. Words are still scarce, but laughter and gestures fill the gaps. You eat, you drink, you sit together under the wide sky. Later, when the fire dies low, you lie back on the grass. Stars glitter overhead, brighter than in the smoky haze of the inn or the torchlight of the shrine. You hear the foreign pilgrims murmuring to one another, their voices soft, almost like prayer. The sound blends with the rustle of grass and the faint chirp of night insects. You close your eyes, comforted by the company, even if you cannot share their words. In the morning, you will part ways, as all travelers must. Some will go left, some right, some straight ahead. But tonight, you rest in the glow of strangers who, for a short stretch of road, feel like companions. The morning begins with promise. The sky is wide and pale, the grassland spreading flat as far as you can see. After the soft company of foreign pilgrims, the sudden emptiness feels both freeing and lonely. Your sandals thud against the packed dirt, each step steady, the rhythm echoing in the silence. No hills shield you, no trees line the path. The plain stretches open, and the horizon looks as if it might go on forever. For a time, the air is calm. Birds glide above in lazy circles, and the breeze carries the sweet smell of grass. You breathe deep, grateful for the openness after the cramped inn and crowded market. Yet the openness also gnaws at you. With no walls, no shelter, no shade, the plain feels like a stage, where you are the only player, exposed under the eyes of sky and earth alike. The hours pass, and the sun begins to shift. Clouds gather, first thin streaks, then thicker bands, rolling heavy and dark. The horizon to your left turns bruise-colored, the light swallowed as if someone were dimming the world. Your pace slows, your body tense. You know what is coming. The wind rises, tugging at your robe, lifting dust into your eyes. It carries a smell sharp and metallic, the kind of air that tastes like iron and sparks. You pull your bundle closer to your chest, watching the clouds tower higher, black on top of black. A flash of light breaks them apart, and thunder answers with a growl that shakes your ribs. One mainstream historical fact is that travelers feared storms not only for the rain, but for the lightning itself. In flat plains, there was often no higher point than the traveler, making them vulnerable. Records show monks struck dead in open fields, their staffs charred, their robes scorched. Historians still argue whether divine punishment was truly believed to be behind such deaths, or whether it was simply a terrifying accident explained through the only lens people had. Out here, with no shelter in sight, you understand why both beliefs might live side by side. The first drops fall, thick and cold, splattering your scalp. In moments, the sky opens, and the plain transforms. Rain lashes in sheets, each gust carried sideways by the wind. The road becomes a stream, your sandals sinking and slipping. Mud clings to your feet, sucking at every step as if the plain itself wants to hold you in place. You bow your head, pushing forward into the storm. The wind roars so loud it drowns your own breath. Water streams down your face, blinding you, soaking your robe until it hangs heavy as stone. Each step feels like hauling yourself through a river. Lightning cracks above, searing the world in white for an instant. And in that instant, you see nothing but flat land, stretching endlessly. Nowhere to hide, nowhere to run. A quirky tidbit surfaces in your thoughts. Some pilgrims carried small charms made from iron nails, believing the metal would protect them from lightning. Others painted symbols on their staffs for the same purpose. Whether superstition or not, The belief gave them courage to keep walking under skies that seemed intent on tearing the world open. You feel the lack of such a charm now, though courage is perhaps nothing more than walking when you have no choice. The storm rages on, and you stumble. Your knee slams into mud, cold water rushing past your skin. You push yourself up again, teeth gritted, the weight of your bundle nearly toppling you. For a moment you want to stop, to crouch down and let the storm pass. But the plain offers no comfort. To stop here is to surrender yourself to wind and water. So you walk, one foot dragging after the other, your robe plastered to your body, your bones shivering. Time loses shape in storms. You cannot tell if minutes or hours pass as you fight each step. The clouds move slowly, their bellies heavy with endless rain. Your body aches, your throat raw from swallowing water with every gust. You mutter prayers without realizing, half-formed words tumbling from your lips. Perhaps no one listens. Perhaps the storm is the only listener, mocking your fragile voice with its thunder. Then, slowly, the fury softens. The rain shifts from sheets to streams, from streams to droplets. The thunder moves farther away, its growl fading into memory. The wind eases, leaving the plain silent once more. You stop walking, panting, your robe clinging to your skin, your sandals caked with mud. The plain smells fresh, sharp with wet grass and soil. The clouds part, and pale sunlight spills across the soaked land. Puddles shine like mirrors, reflecting the endless sky. Birds return, cautious at first, then swooping boldly overhead. The storm has passed, though your body still trembles from its grip. You wipe water from your eyes and laugh once. A rough, tired laugh that carries no joy but only relief. Historians still argue whether storms were feared more for their physical danger or their spiritual meaning. Were they warnings from heaven, or just reminders of how small a human body is against the weight of nature? You are too tired to decide. You only know that you walked through it, and you are still standing. The plain stretches again, quiet now, the horizon clear. Each step squelches in mud, but the air is clean, your lungs feel easier, and the light warms your back. You carry on, slower but steadier, the storm behind you, the road waiting, and somewhere ahead, beyond the soaked grass and shining puddles, a city waits with towers and gates that you can almost imagine glowing in the distance. The plain dries slowly under the sun, each puddle shrinking into the soil until only dark stains remain on the road. Your sandals slap against the mud, hardened by heat, leaving faint prints behind you. The storm has passed, but its memory lingers in your sore legs and damp robe. Still, as the day stretches on, the horizon changes. What was once only sky and field now shows faint lines reaching upward, sharper than trees, brighter than hills. At first you think it is a trick of the light, but as the miles pass, the shapes grow clearer, towers rise against the blue, spires thin as needles glinting in sunlight. The sacred city waits. Its walls stretch wide, pale stone glowing where the sun strikes them. Even from this distance, you can see movement along the gates, crowds gathering, banners fluttering in the wind. Your pace quickens despite the ache in your legs. The city calls, its presence heavy on the horizon. The road fills with others now, pilgrims who, like you, have survived storms, markets, and long stretches of empty plain. They walk in clusters, their faces weary but lifted by the sight ahead. Children skip in the dust, their laughter carried on the breeze. Merchants guide carts heavy with goods, animals pulling in steady rhythm. For the first time in many days, you are part of a stream flowing in one direction. One mainstream historical fact is that sacred cities were designed not only as spiritual centers but also as economic hubs. Pilgrims brought wealth in coin and trade, and rulers ensured the roads to such cities were at least somewhat maintained. Historians still argue whether rulers encouraged pilgrimage mainly for faith or for revenue. Looking at the crowd moving beside you, with purses clinking and carts groaning under weight, you see the truth may be both. As you draw closer, the sounds reach you, the clang of bells, the murmur of thousands of voices, the creak of wooden gates opening and closing. The smell drifts to a strange mixture of incense, livestock, fresh bread, and unwashed bodies. The city breathes outward, and you breathe it in before you even set foot on its stones. You pause for a moment at the crest of a small hill. The walls rise before you, massive and solid, the gates alive with color and motion. The spires glitter above like spears of light, and flags ripple in the breeze. Pilgrims stream towards the gates from every path, some singing, some silent, some carrying bundles on their heads. You stand among them, one figure in a river of devotion. A quirky tidbit drifts to mind. Some pilgrims believed the very dust of the sacred city carried blessing. Travelers would scoop handfuls of soil just outside the gates and carry it home in little pouches, convinced it would protect them from illness or misfortune. You look down at the dust clinging to your sandals and wonder if you are already covered in blessing without knowing it. Closer still, the noise swells. A vendor calls out, selling small clay lamps. Another waves trinkets carved from bone, promising they will bring luck. Beggars line the path, their hands stretched, their voices pleading louder than the vendors. The crowd thickens, pressing shoulder to shoulder. You clutch your bundle tightly, aware that in such closeness, both charity and theft move swiftly. The gates tower above you now, carved with images of saints and beasts, their details softened by years of touch. Pilgrims reach to press their fingers into the grooves, leaving behind oil and hope. Some fall to their knees before entering, their foreheads touching stone. Others rush forward, eager to find food or bed. You stand for a moment beneath the arch, staring upward at the carvings, feeling small beneath their weight. Historians still argue whether these grand entrances were built more for faith or for power. Were they doorways to heaven on earth, or were they reminders of who controlled the road into the city? Perhaps both truths live in the stones. To you, it feels like walking into a story written long before your steps began. Inside, the streets unfold in a swirl of color and sound. Lanterns hang from doorways, their flames flickering in the late afternoon breeze. Children dart between pilgrims, laughing as they weave through robes and carts. Bells ring from towers high above, their tones mixing with the chants of monks walking in procession. The air is thick with incense and the sharp tang of animals herded through narrow alleys. You are swallowed by the city, carried along by the stream of bodies. Every corner bursts with something new. a seller of sweets dusting sugar over fried dough, a musician plucking a harp while balancing on a barrel, a monk sprinkling water over the heads of those who pass. You feel your senses pulled in every direction, overwhelmed yet unwilling to close yourself off. At last, you find a small square where the crowd loosens. A fountain bubbles at its center, water spilling from the mouth of a carved lion. Pilgrims kneel to drink, splashing the cool water over their faces. You join them, scooping water into your hands. It tastes faintly of stone and iron, yet it cools your throat, steadying you after the crush of the gate. Above the fountain, the spires of the central temple shine golden in the falling sun. That is where the road has been leading, the place where chants rise every dawn and candles burn every night. Yet you know the city itself is alive beyond the temple, its alleys and markets, its inns and shrines, all part of the fabric that makes this place sacred in more ways than one. You rest for a moment at the fountain, your robe still damp from the storm, your body sore, your heart oddly light. The city hums around you, vast and loud, and you realize that the road has not ended. It has only changed shape. Evening settles over the sacred city, and the air shifts with it. The sun slides down behind the spires, leaving the sky deep purple, and the streets stir in a new rhythm. Lanterns are lit, one by one, each flame cradled in colored paper. Soon the alleys glow with soft red, gold, and green, like 100 tiny moons rising together. Crowds gather, thicker now than during the day. Pilgrims and townsfolk alike press shoulder to shoulder, their voices mingling in a rising hum. Children carry lanterns shaped like birds or fish, the paper wings and fins trembling as they weave through the crowd. Merchants shout louder than before, their wares glinting in the glow. Musicians strike up quick tunes, and dancers twirl in open squares, their shadows chasing the flames. You are swept along, your sandals barely finding the cobbles beneath. The air is heavy with incense, roasted meat, and the waxy smell of hot candles. Everywhere you turn, a new lantern sways above, its color painting the faces around you in flickering light. For a moment, the city feels less like stone and more like dream, a place where fire itself has come down to walk the streets. One mainstream historical fact is that festivals of light, whether lanterns or candles, appeared in many cultures as ways to mark sacred time. They guided processions, honored saints or spirits, and reminded pilgrims that the path forward should be illuminated. Historians still argue whether these festivals were truly religious acts, or whether they doubled as clever ways to stimulate trade and celebration. Looking at the crowded stalls and eager buyers around you, you can see why the debate continues. A parade pushes through the main street. Monks carry long poles, each bearing a lantern larger than a man, painted with scenes of rivers, mountains, and temples. The lanterns sway gently as they move, casting wide patches of light that make the crowd gasp and reach upward. You follow, your pace drawn into theirs, your eyes fixed on the shifting glow. Beside you, a boy tugs your robe and presses a small lantern into your hand. It is simple, just a paper square folded over a stick, the flame inside trembling. You nod in thanks, though he vanishes into the crowd before you can speak. You lift the lantern and let its light guide your steps. The glow softens the lines of the faces around you, turning strangers into companions for as long as the flame lasts. A quirky tidbit comes to mind. In some lantern festivals, children would write secret wishes on the paper before lighting them. The belief was that the flame would carry the words upward, and the smoke would deliver them to spirits above. Some even scribbled jokes or insults instead, sending laughter skyward, disguised as prayer. You glance at the paper lantern in your hand, wondering what message might already be written on it in invisible ink of imagination. The crowd swells tighter near the temple gates. Musicians play drums now, their rhythms echoing against the stone walls. The gates are covered in lanterns of every shape, glowing so brightly they seem to replace the stars. Pilgrims kneel before the steps, holding their lanterns close, whispering prayers. Others climb higher, eager to see the central courtyard where thousands gather. You are carried forward with them, your lantern bobbing above your shoulder. At the top of the steps, the sight makes you stop. The entire courtyard is filled with light. Lanterns float on shallow pools of water, drifting slowly in circles. Lanterns hang from ropes stretched across the open sky. Lanterns sit in the hands of children, old men, monks, merchants, beggars. The glow covers everyone equally, wrapping the city in soft fire. You feel as if the very air has become alive with light, as if you are breathing flame without burning. You sit at the edge of the courtyard, resting your bundle beside you. The chants of monks rise and fall, blending with the music of flutes and drums. The hum of the crowd swells, then softens, like the sea pulling in and out. You close your eyes for a moment, and the light presses against your eyelids, painting everything red and gold. Historians still argue whether such festivals truly brought people closer to the divine, or whether they distracted pilgrims with spectacle. Some claimed the glow was nothing more than entertainment disguised as worship. Others insisted the flames mirrored stars and guided souls toward heaven. You do not need to choose a side. Sitting here, the glow warming your face, you know only that the world feels softer, kinder, lighter. That is enough. As the night deepens, the lanterns continue to glow. Flames flicker but do not die, held safe in careful frames of paper. You watch them sway, listen to the laughter and prayer rising around you, and feel yourself settle into the rhythm of the festival. The road may have been harsh, but tonight the city offers fire and beauty without demand. When at last you stand, your legs stiff, you carry your lantern with you. The flame trembles, painting your path as you step away from the courtyard. Behind you, the sacred city hums, its heart alight. Ahead, the road will call again, but for this night, you carry a piece of the glow with you. After the festival of lanterns, the city slowly folds itself back into quieter rhythm. The streets remain lit with a few flickering lamps, but the raucous music fades into memory. You find yourself drawn away from the crowds, your sandals clicking softly against cobblestones as you follow the faint sound of bells. The air carries a different kind of scent now, not roasted meat or wax, but incense, sharp and sweet, clinging to the cool night breeze. You come to a temple, smaller than the central courtyard, yet grand in its own way. Its doors stand open, golden light spilling onto the street. A monk gestures silently, inviting you to enter. You bow and step across the threshold. Inside, the air changes. The noise of the city dissolves as if cut away by invisible hands. The chamber is dim, lit only by tall candles and small bowls of oil that flicker along the walls. Stone pillars rise into shadow, their surfaces carved with spirals and symbols. A group of monks kneel at the front, their voices rising in low chant. The sound rolls through the chamber like the hum of bees, steady and unbroken. You slip to the side and kneel among other pilgrims. Some hold rosaries or prayer beads, their fingers moving in practiced rhythm. Others simply close their eyes, letting the chant carry them. You rest your bundle at your side and bow your head, though your mind wanders even as your lips form the words you half remember. One mainstream historical fact is that temples like this often served as centers of debate as much as worship. Monks gathered not only to pray but also to argue about the meaning of scripture, the proper way to chant, or the exact rituals of pilgrimage. Historians still argue whether such debates strengthened faith or fractured it. Tonight, you imagine both outcomes are possible. As two monks at the front begin to whisper fiercely while still keeping their chants steady. The chanting continues, deep and soothing. The sound presses into your chest, a vibration that steadies your breath. You close your eyes, drifting into a half-waking state where the line between prayer and sleep blurs. The stone beneath your knees is cold, but the air feels warmer with each note. A quirky tidbit surfaces in your memory. Some temples used hollow wooden fish drums during prayer, carved in the shape of a fish with its mouth open. The constant beat reminded monks to stay awake, because a fish never closes its eyes. You picture the sound tapping through this chamber, sharp and steady, keeping drowsy pilgrims from sliding into dreams. You feel grateful no one has brought one tonight, because the sleepy hum is exactly what your body craves. When the chant ends, silence settles, heavy as cloth. The monks bow, then rise to light more incense. A haze drifts through the chamber, sweet and smoky, curling into every corner. Pilgrims lean forward to pass the flame, each taking a stick of incense, pressing it into sand-filled urns. You follow, the faint smoke stinging your eyes, making them water. Perhaps it is the smoke, perhaps the weariness, but tears slip down your cheeks before you realize. The service shifts to soft recitations. Monks speak passages in slow voices, pausing often as if weighing each word. Their tones rise and fall, pulling the listeners into rhythm. The sound becomes less like words and more like waves washing over you. You imagine the arguments scholars have had over these very passages, whether they were meant literally, metaphorically, or even politically. Historians still argue whether monks sought truth in these words, or whether they sought power in the way words shaped followers. You let the question dissolve, carried away by the cadence. At one point, a young novice moves down the aisle with a bowl of water. He sprinkles drops onto bowed heads, the coolness startling each pilgrim into a gasp. When he reaches you, the water slides across your scalp, soaking into the dust of your journey. You close your eyes, letting the moment anchor you in silence. The service ends not with loud proclamation, but with soft bells. Their sound rings long after the monks bow and the candles are snuffed. Pilgrims stir slowly, some lingering, some hurrying out into the night. You remain seated for a time, your body heavy, your thoughts lighter. The temple has quieted something inside you, even if only for a short stretch. At last, you rise, your knees stiff from stone. You step out through the doors and back into the cool air of the street. The city hums faintly beyond, its lanterns glowing, its voices softer now. You glance back at the temple once more, its doorway flickering with the last of the candlelight, and then you turn to follow the road again. The pilgrim path does not pause, even after incense and chant. The road waits, pulling you forward into its endless rhythm. The city slowly fades behind you, its spires shrinking until they are no more than distant glimmers above the horizon. The memory of lanterns and chants lingers like smoke in your mind, but the road presses forward, as it always does. The crowd of pilgrims thins once more. You find yourself alone more often, your sandals dragging across dirt that seems less forgiving with each step. Your body begins to rebel. Blisters form on your feet, throbbing with every stride. Your shoulders ache from the constant weight of your bundle, your back stiff from straw mats and cold stone floors. The robe that once felt light and loose now clings with sweat, its fabric rubbing sore against your skin. Each hill feels taller than the one before, and even flat roads seem endless. Pilgrimage was never meant to be comfortable. One mainstream historical fact is that many pilgrims in the Middle Ages accepted exhaustion as part of their devotion. Some even chose to walk barefoot or wear chains around their waists to increase the hardship. Historians still argue whether these practices were sincere expressions of faith or performances meant to impress fellow travelers and donors. You are not concerned with such arguments tonight. The ache in your feet feels holy enough. The road stretches and the days blur. You wake sore, you walk sore, you sleep sore. Meals are thin, often just crusts of bread or a ladle of gruel from a sympathetic farmer. Water tastes of iron or clay, yet you gulp it as if it were fine wine. Every part of the journey demands more than it gives. A quirky tidbit flickers in your memory. Some pilgrims swore by cabbage leaves wrapped around sore feet as a cure for blisters. Others rubbed garlic onto their soles to ward off pain and infection. You consider both remedies with a weary laugh. All you have are rags torn from your robe, wrapped tight around raw skin that still burns with every step. The landscape does little to ease you. Plains roll endlessly, broken by thin groves of trees where shade is scarce. The wind blows dust into your mouth and eyes, drying your throat. Nights are colder than you expect, and mornings heavier. Even the birds seem to mock you, their calls sharp and restless while your body crawls forward like stone dragged on rope. There are moments when you want to stop, to sit in the grass and refuse to rise. You imagine how easy it would be to give in, to let the road continue without you. Yet something small but persistent pulls you forward. Perhaps it is faith, perhaps stubbornness, perhaps only the memory of the city's spires. Whatever the reason, you take another step, and another, and another. Other pilgrims pass you sometimes, their faces etched with the same mixture of fatigue and determination. Some greet you kindly, offering a wordless nod. Others trudge past without glance, their eyes locked on the horizon. For a moment you fall into step with them, sharing silence, before your pace slows again and they move ahead. Companionship comes and goes, like shadows in the sun. At night, exhaustion swallows you before you can even think of prayer. You collapse wherever the road allows, under hedges, near ditches, in barns when luck allows. Sleep comes heavy and dreamless, a blackness that feels both merciful and cruel. You wake stiff, your body demanding more rest, yet the road calls before the sun rises. You rise because you must. Historians still argue whether exhaustion was seen as weakness or as proof of devotion. Some chroniclers praised those who collapsed on the road, calling their suffering sacred. Others mocked them, writing that true faith needed no theatrics of pain. You, stumbling along with blistered feet and aching shoulders, care little for such debates. Pain feels less like proof and more like the simple price of each mile. There are rare moments of relief. A cool stream where you wash your face and let water soak your sore legs. A farmer who shares a cup of milk with no questions asked. A child who runs beside you for a short stretch, laughing before darting back to his village. Small mercies, fleeting as shadows, but enough to remind you that the road is not all cruelty. Still, the weight of exhaustion does not lift. It presses heavier with each mile. You begin to count steps instead of days, measuring your progress in small increments, 10 steps, then another 10, then another. The road becomes less about destination and more about simply not falling. One evening, as the sun sets in a blaze of red and gold, you collapse against a tree. The bark digs into your back, but you do not care. You stare at the horizon, your breath ragged, your body trembling. You think of the monastery's chants, the market's noise, the storm's fury, the lantern's glow. All of it feels far away, like fragments of someone else's story. What remains is the weight of your body and the pull of the road beneath it. You close your eyes and let the ache spread. Perhaps tomorrow will bring another shrine, another roof, another meal, or perhaps it will only bring more dust and more blisters. Either way, the road will be waiting, and you will have to rise once again. The land begins to rise beneath your feet, slowly at first, then with a sharper incline. Hills fold into one another, and soon they harden into mountains. The air grows thinner, cooler, sharper with every breath. Your steps slow. Each one feels as though you are carrying more than your bundle, as though the road itself has leapt onto your shoulders. The path narrows, hugging the side of cliffs. To your right, jagged stone walls rise into the clouds. To your left, the land falls away into dizzying depths where streams glimmer like threads of silver. The sound of rushing water echoes far below. You grip your staff tighter, steadying your balance as loose stones scatter beneath your sandals. Pilgrims have always feared mountain roads. One mainstream historical fact is that alpine passes in Europe and similar routes in Asia were considered some of the most dangerous stretches of pilgrimage. Snow, landslides, and sudden storms claimed countless lives. Monks sometimes built small hospices along these routes, offering shelter to those who survived the climb. Historians still argue whether such shelters were acts of mercy or strategies to control travel and tolls. For you, mercy and strategy are irrelevant. All you want is breath and footing. The air smells of pine and wet stone. Clouds drift close, sometimes wrapping the path in thick grey, where you can barely see your own hands. Your robe clings with mist, heavy and cold. Each step upward feels like a prayer, written not with words, but with effort. Your lungs burn, your heart thuds loud in your ears. You pass shrines tucked into cliffs, small as birdhouses, marked with simple carvings. Travelers long before you left offerings there. Beads, feathers, smooth stones carried up from valleys. Some are nearly lost to moss, but the sight of them steals you. Others have climbed this path. Others have gasped on this same thin air. Others have pressed forward where you now struggle. A quirky tidbit comes to mind. Some pilgrims in mountain regions carried little flasks filled with strong spirits, convinced the drink would protect against cold and thin air. In truth, it likely made them more vulnerable, but faith in the burn of the liquid gave them courage. You wish for a sip of anything warm, though your flask holds nothing but lukewarm water that tastes faintly of iron. The path turns steeper. You find yourself using hands as well as feet, gripping rough stone to haul yourself higher. Your nails break, your palms bleed, but still you climb. The air whistles with wind, tugging at your robe, threatening to pull you sideways into empty space. Your body aches beyond measure, yet some stubborn spark inside you refuses to stop. At one bend, the road opens into a ledge. You collapse there, chest heaving, legs trembling. The view spreads wide. Peaks rise all around, jagged and white-tipped, their crowns wrapped in mist. Valleys lie hidden beneath clouds, rivers gleaming where light strikes them. For a moment, exhaustion fades into awe. The world is vast, and you are impossibly small. Yet you are here, standing in it, breathing thin air that feels like it belongs more to the heavens than the earth. Historians still argue whether mountain shrines were built at such heights to honor gods who lived above or to remind humans of their fragility. Looking out at peaks that pierced the sky, you think both reasons may be true. The mountain itself feels like a temple, each cliff a wall, each stream a chant, each cloud an altar. You rise again, though every part of your body begs to rest. The final stretch of the ascent lies ahead. The path narrows so much that only one person can pass at a time. A wooden railing runs along the edge, old and cracked, tied with fraying rope. You grip it anyway, trusting more than you should. Step by step, you inch upward, your breath ragged, your body shaking. At last, the path levels. A shrine clings to the mountainside, its roof battered by wind, its walls scarred by storms. Smoke curls faintly from a chimney, proof of life. You stumble forward and find a monk waiting at the doorway. His face is weathered, his robe patched, his eyes calm. Without a word, he gestures you inside. The air is warmer there, filled with the smell of wood smoke and soup simmering over a fire. You collapse onto a wooden bench, too tired to speak. The monk places a bowl before you. Steam rises, filling your lungs with comfort before the food even reaches your lips. You eat slowly, each bite carrying you back from the edge of collapse. When night falls, you lie on a rough mat near the fire. The wind howls outside, rattling shutters, but inside you are sheltered. You stare into the flames, your body aching, your mind heavy, your spirit strangely calm. The mountain has taken nearly all your strength, but it has also given you something in return. A reminder that the road is not just walked, it is endured. You close your eyes, the crackle of fire mixing with the howl of wind. Tomorrow will carry you down the mountain, But tonight you rest in its grasp, half broken, half renewed. The mountain fades behind you, its sharp edges softened by distance. You walk downhill now, the air thickening, each breath easier than it was in the thin heights. The road feels strangely familiar, though not because of stones or turns. It feels familiar because your own body has become the road itself. Every ache, every blister, every bead of sweat has carved the path into you. The valleys stretch wide again. Villages appear, their roofs glimmering with morning dew. Farmers wave from fields, children shout greetings. You answer with a nod or a smile, too tired to speak, yet unwilling to pass without acknowledgement. The pilgrim road has taught you that every meeting, no matter how brief, leaves an imprint. Your thoughts wander as your feet move automatically. You remember the monastery with its barley stew and chanting, the market town with its spice sellers and cheats, the storm on the plain that nearly pulled you into the mud, the lanterns glowing in the city, the temple where incense made your eyes sting, the mountain that stole your breath. Each place clings to you, threads in a cloak you did not know you were weaving. One mainstream historical fact is that pilgrims often returned home carrying tokens from the journey. A badge from a shrine, a vial of water from a sacred river, a piece of cloth touched to a saint's relic. These items became proof, shown with pride, sometimes sold for coin. Historians still argue whether such tokens deepened belief or cheapened it into trade. You carry no badge or relic. What you carry instead is memory, pressed into your bones as surely as dust into your sandals. The road unwinds behind you. Ahead lies home, though it may not feel the same when you arrive. Pilgrimage changes not only how you see the world, but also how you see the familiar. You know that the rhythm of sandals on dirt will echo in your ears, even as you sit by your own hearth. You know that the faces of strangers will walk with you in dreams. A quirky tidbit comes to mind. Some pilgrims, once home, found themselves restless, unable to sleep on soft beds or eat rich food without guilt. A few even left again, addicted to the road itself. You wonder if that restlessness already waits for you. The thought makes you both uneasy and oddly comforted. Evening draws near. The road glows gold under the sinking sun. You pause on a hill, looking back one final time. The mountains rise faintly in the haze. The city spires glimmer far off. The plains stretch endless. The markets and monasteries hidden yet alive in memory. You bow your head, not in farewell, but in recognition. The road is never truly behind you. It lives wherever your feet carry you next. You turn forward again. The journey is not over. It has only changed shape. The pilgrim road continues, even when your sandals rest. The story slows now, soft as the last glow of sunset slipping across quiet fields. You can feel the weight of the road easing from your shoulders, like a heavy bundle finally set down. Each sound fades, the chatter of markets, the crash of storms, the clang of bells, all dissolving into distance. What remains is only the steady rhythm of your own breath, slower, calmer, gentler with each passing moment. The lanterns of the sacred city still flicker in memory, yet they are no longer blinding. They are like faint stars above you, twinkling soft and far. The mountain wind still hums, but now it is quiet as a lullaby, carrying not strain but comfort. Even the dust of the plain settles, no longer clinging, only resting quietly in the corners of the road. The world narrows now to smaller things. The feel of cool air against your skin. The weight of your head sinking lower. The calm stretch of silence that fills the spaces where once there was noise. The road is still there, but it no longer demands your steps. It simply waits, patient and unhurried, content to rest beside you. Your body loosens, shoulders sink, eyes grow heavier, thoughts drift like clouds, unshaped, unneeded. Whatever burdens the road once placed upon you, they fall away now, scattered like leaves on water. You are safe, you are still, you are already home, even if your feet continue to dream of wandering. Let yourself rest. Let the road fade. Let the lanterns dim, the chants soften, the storms dissolve. Sleep takes you gently, like the hush of incense rising into the night.